song from P Square, giving you double. The twins who just got back together. So today we'll be discussing culture in its entirety on this personality segment of Ogun State Television's Splash, Ogtv Splash. So with me here today, I have someone who is a culture enthusiast. He's also a tourist. He's a biker. He has been to several parts of the African continent via his bike. I'm sure you're familiar with Mr. Kunle Adeyanju, who has been traveling from London to Lagos. He's still on his way. He hasn't arrived to Nigeria yet, and has been doing that via his bike. So we have someone here also who has done similar things. Who best to discuss culture than someone who has been to all the parts of the country and other parts of the continent to experience their culture in person. So celebrating the World Day for Cultural Diversity in Dialogue and Development today, we'll be discussing this topic with Mr. Tunde Ebidero. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
It is a pleasure to have you. Yeah. I mean, if my producer had told me you'd be coming in with your bike, I would have come into the studio fully kitted, because I'm a bike lover.
Okay, do you have a kit yet?
No, I don't.
Okay, so you have to start with get to the one first.
Yeah, that's not a problem. I can get a kit for myself.
Okay.
So I can learn from you, get to ride on the bike, and it's actually a dream for me to be on the power bike and then drive a fast car. You know, speed is my thing.
That's quite interesting. Not very many female Nigerians would like to be.
I'm part of the few, and I'd love to learn from you actually. Yeah. So. First of all, to the business of the day, talking about cultural diversity and your experience so far. Yeah. So how would you put cultural diversity in your context? What's your understanding of cultural diversity?
Well, my understanding of cultural diversity is the very many cultural differences that we have amongst us, but which eventually brings us together rather than separates us. It's diverse, but yet it unites. So that's what I understand as cultural diversity. But however, that's not what we get. I agree. I was just about to say that, because you said cultural diversity brings us together. To bring us together.
Coming back home, which is Nigeria, with over 350 diverse cultures.
Yes.
So over 350 ethnic groups.
Yes.
And then this actually has, in a way, separated us, not necessarily brought us together. We stand as an individual. The Yoruba man will tell you he's a Yoruba man, and don't go near an Igbo man, and a Hausa man will say, no, I'm an Hausa person, don't marry someone from the Efik will say, don't marry someone from the Gala, and it goes on and on. It has separated us even more.
Yes, you're right.
Yes, instead of bringing us together. So talking about that, how important is it for us to accept, tolerate, and love each other as one, not necessarily looking at our individual cultures?
You see, what I found that from my trip abroad, particularly biking, and then also from my little research, is that what our cultural diversity was meant to do for us is not what we're getting, and the reason is because of our ignorance about that.
Okay, what are we ignorant of?
We're ignorant of the value, the importance of the diversity in our culture. And I'll say this to you, and then apart from that, we also have our leaders playing on that to get their own selfish dreams and aspirations. You will agree with me that it wasn't this terribly bad initially, but has gotten so worse now. Yes, we have a couple of issues in the past where an Igbo man wouldn't want his daughter to be married to a Yoruba man and all that. But I thought at some point we were able to cross that border, we were able to cross that bridge, and we've been able to do beautifully well, and they began to cohabit together, and that's why our communities are having a lot of different people living together. There's no segregation. There's no place for the Igbo man to live and the place for example, in Abeokuta, so to say. So we open up and we accepted one another. But unfortunately, when it comes to politics and all that, this comes to be the issue that we have. But for why I said we lack the understanding or the value, we lack the knowledge of the value in culture is because we've not seen the aspect that our culture can bring back to us. the goods we want by exporting our culture. I'll give an example now. What I'm wearing is none of my culture.
Okay.
Yeah, but practically in Nigeria today, everybody is doing English wear. This is the European culture that we have imported. We love wearing jeans. It's not of our culture, it's an American culture. You and I are not speaking
our mother
tongue. It's a culture we imbibed. And today, if I were to take my wife out, now I asked her, where would you like to go? I said, I want to go to a Chinese restaurant. Chinese restaurant is not my culture.
Maybe she eats a lot of our own food. She just wants something different.
Yes, that's it. But sometimes, naturally as a human being, you would always want something different at some point.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. And that's the point where we needed to appreciate our culture. Because that thing different you want is another man's culture. But where we are missing it is we ought to package our culture. Like I said, I always say something. Culture is the cash crop of every nation, every ethnicity. If you understand this, then you're good. The first thing the Chinese tried to do was to sell their food to us. Long before they started bringing their product.
So food is part of culture.
It is part of culture, because if you talk about apple today, the first thing that comes to your mind is
the Igbo.
That's the ethnicity that eats apple. If you talk about amala,
no, it's the Yorubas.
Yeah, but even within the Yorubas, when you talk about mala, you know you're talking about your people. If you talk about the Inyon pounded yam, you know you're talking about the Ekiti or the Kaba, where I came from. So you see, but we have not been able to successfully package that and export it.
Okay, for us to better understand our cultural diversity and to be able to tolerate each other, I mean, aside the food we eat, the clothes we put on our attire, what are the things distinguish us as a cultural person? What are the things distinguish a Yoruba person from a Togolese, from a Cote d'Ivoire person and all that? What distinguishes us? What distinguishes our culture?
The major distinction we have within our culture is our value system. What we value. In some culture, in Yoruba land, for example, we value parental respect a lot. But that's not what you get in the north, and it's not that vocal not that prominent in the east. In the east, they value their chieftaincy issue, much more than the respect of culture. In the east, you respect the chief than you respect your father and all that. So these are differences, but these differences are not meant to divide us, no, but they are meant for us to appreciate one another and find a way where we can bring it together. The great one that made us, God who created us, deliberately made it so. I don't want to start talking about the Bible.
So let's go back to values. And then where charity begins from, which is home, the home front. It's quite difficult now to see people, especially parents, bring up their kids, their words in a cultural way. They tell their words not to speak their indigenous language. It is vernacular now. They they dress up their words in a fashion-oriented way. That is how they say it. It's a taboo for their kids to put on Ankara, to put on Adire, and the Ashoke, and what makes us who we are. So they believe that living and then bringing up their words the European way, like you've mentioned, gives them better values, puts them in better light in the society. So what would you say about that?
You see, every culture is dynamic, and at the same time, it's evolving. And I think we have the extremists who say, no, we have to do it exactly the way it is, despite the change in time. But if you don't subject your culture to that transformational change in time, it becomes a big problem. You understand? It becomes a big problem. There is no ethnicity whose culture has not evolved over time. Time and season will force change on culture. But what we needed to do is to bring some adaptation into it. For example, the Adire you spoke about. If you like, I like wearing t-shirt because that's naturally what I need to wear to ride. But I have quite a number of riding t-shirts today that are Adire made.
Okay.
So that's an infusion of a Western culture and
into our
into ours. There has to be a point whereby culture have these intermarriages, not intermarriages of people, but intermarriages of culture. There must be some things in your culture that it's very acceptable to me, but I have to now tropicalize it. Let me borrow that Greek language. I have to tropicalize it to mine. It has to come to suit me, but it's a borough culture. And I think that's where we're having problem. You want to insist it must be my way, it must be the way it's been since time immemorial, then we're bound to have problems.
Interesting. So let's talk about the cultural diversity we have in Nigeria due to the many ethnic groups that are present in the country. Some school of thought believe that if you can have one language, what is a particular language that almost everybody here, everyone in Nigeria understands, Pidgin language. If we can all speak Pidgin, or if Pidgin is legalized, if that is what we all can speak, then we have a better country, we have a better society. We understand each other better, we have a common culture that brings us together. So, are you of this school of thought, or do you believe that having just one language, just one culture, will promote a society's development?
No, I don't. I honestly don't, because at the end of the day, you're not giving us the varieties that we.
But it's varieties again.
You know, in terms of language,
developing the country.
In terms of language, the first is that let's understand what language is all about. Language is all about communication.
Okay.
Ability to communicate to one another. And because there's no relationship without communication, and once communication breaks down, relationship is ended. So the essence of language, it shouldn't be what defines us, basically. It shouldn't be what determines what we are, but it's a tool, it's a means to an end, it's what we use to get to where we are going. So having said that, for effective communication, yes, a common language is required, but making it the only reason that can push us forward, I don't agree with that.
Okay, so we're definitely looking at one of your travel abroad on bike. You've been to different parts of the African continent, riding your way through them. What are those things that you have been able to understand, you've been able to come across? What are those vital and important things that culture has taught you on the different trips that you've made?
One, I get to test different food.
Different food?
Yes.
Okay, I like to do that too.
I get to learn different courtesies.
Okay.
Yeah, how you greet people, how you approach people, how you talk to people, and how you address people. I get to experience that.
Okay.
I get to, in fact, it helps me to even experience to even appreciate my own culture the more, because when I get what I see out sometimes, oh wow, so this is why we have it. For example, let me just chip this in. When I rode and we got to Togo and we needed to get fuel, we had to buy fuel at 600 naira per liter. When we got to Ghana, we had to buy fuel at 800 naira per liter, and I began to appreciate how much fuel goes for in Nigeria, even though I would still want it down. You understand?
Yes, I get you.
Those experiences either helps you to see how you can modify your own culture back at home, or how you need to really appreciate what you have.
So comparing other African countries and the way they appreciate their culture to here in Nigeria, what would you say about that? Would you say they have a better sense of cultural implementation? Permit me to use the word implementation, because culture is something that you see. When it is out there, you see it. It cannot be hidden. So comparing both parties, other African countries and Nigerian, what would you have to say?
I think we have the same problem with all other African countries, because our cultures have been eroded by the Western culture. You understand? So we don't really have that much community any longer where culture has been practiced the same way it has always been. There is that evolving thing that I spoke about, which is positive as far as I'm concerned. We're not supposed to lose our origin. We're not supposed to lose our culture completely, but we might have to modify it and to change some things as we advance in age and in time.
We have a common factor.
Yes, there's a common factor. The only place you get to see more is when you go to the rural areas, which is the same thing in Nigeria. You enjoy the traditional culture more when you get to rural area than when you get to the city. The city are almost. Well, incidentally, I was in Accra at Easter period. Accra suddenly went quiet. Everybody moved to the rural areas to celebrate their Easter, and I understand that that's part of their culture.
No.
We ran into some on our way. I don't know if the video was there also. We ran into some on our way, and we saw. We got into a community where everybody was wearing red by the river, and they said it was symbolizes love, and that's how they celebrated every Easter Friday.
Oh,
but
wow.
that's not what we do here. Why we mourn here in the Christian community mourn here every Easter Friday. That particular community was celebrating love for the same reason. Yeah, they saw what Jesus did for them as love.
As love. We saw it as sacrifice.
As sacrifice. So you see, so you can see the infusion of culture and what we have imported from the Western world, and how both community has interpreted it and has accepted it.
Okay, talking about religion, because you just chipped that in.
Yeah.
We can talk about culture without religion because they affect each other. They are intertwined in a way. So Nigeria having different religious bodies. We have the Christians, the Muslims, the traditionalists, and the free thinkers. You can't ignore them, actually. And these religions mostly, they preach peace.
Yes.
So talking about religion, tolerance, culture itself, bringing all these things together, how do you think that these three factors can promote the nation's development?
Yeah, religion can help us promote the development that we want. You will agree with me that religion has contributed to development in Africa. Education was brought to us by religion. You understand? Modern trade was brought to us by religion. Quite a number of things. Of course, there is the negative side of it, which we cannot deny. But you know, anything a human being handles, we tend to want to take it to the extreme. The challenge I say with culture is the same thing with religion. We are this superiority complex issue. You want to enforce your own ideology, your own cultural ideology, your own traditional ideology on me, even though I'm not ready to accept it, is where the problem is. So it's the same problem we have both in the cultural aspect and also in the religion aspect. But if we know how to tolerate one another and appreciate one another, appreciate the difference in one another. Now, when you're married to someone who is totally different from you, even if you're from the same culture, even if you meet two people from the same womb, they have different personalities. Okay, but how are we able to live together with our different personalities, unless seeing the difference in us to still achieve our aim, our goal? That's the same thing we need to apply to both religion and our culture. Unless looking at harvesting the difference, the diversity in us, and looking at avenues by which we can use it to promote our peace and our goal. I can bet you, we have seen in the past, in Jos, I remember, there is a church and a mosque that are sharing fence together.
Okay.
Yes, in Jos.
Wow.
In those days, then we have them. I must confess to you that the lack of peace we have currently is not because of the religion, in quote, or the culture. It's because the handlers of this, both the religion and culture, playing the game of superiority. That's just what I see there. If we can take away the game of superiority, we will have a balanced community and we'll all be fine. Okay,
interesting. We've talked about the problems faced by culture, incorporated religion into it. So now let's look at the perspectives, the solution. You have said it clearly here that cultural diversity is needed. We all don't need to drop our culture and then come to accept a particular culture for a nation or for a society to work. So with this cultural diversity, I'll keep using our own nation as an example because we have...
Charity begins at home.
Exactly. We
have a lot of challenges.
A lot of cultural diversity coming from the ethnic groups, and the fact that we have this inability, personality to accept each other's culture. So let's look at it this way. How do we accept each other's culture? That is one, because you've been saying that we should accept, we should tolerate each other for a societal growth. How do we accept each other? I am a Yoruba person. I kneel to greet an elderly man or an elderly woman, an elderly person. but an Igbo person is right there. I'm elderly and he just wouldn't prostrate for me. How do I tolerate that?
Okay, first and foremost, let me start by chipping one very big fact here. Do you know that China, the largest nation in the world, I think they have 1.7 billion people, 1.4 billion people, I think, has 5,000 dialects.
Wow.
5,000 dialects in China. So that means they have 5,000 different cultural diversity. And yet,
and we have just over 350.
Oh, yeah, and yet they are doing well.
Okay.
Yeah, they are not having cultural conflicts. You get understand? The truth is, we are not being sincere to one another, and that's the problem. You're a lady, like you rightly said, and you visit someone and you choose to kneel. You did your
it is expected of me to kneel.
Yes, because that's your culture, and which you have accepted.
Yes.
And then you did your visitation with another friend who is an Igbo lady, but who chose not to kneel because that's what our culture. Now, the person receiving you as guest should understand that and respect the difference. Now, the moment the person begins to say, no, can't you see your friend? If she's kneeling, can't you come and get on your kneels?
Yeah, that's happening.
Then you are inflicting into her own cultural rights.
Okay, so there's a thing called cultural rights.
Yes, of course there is, because I have a culture. Kneeling is a cultural right of the Yoruba man.
Okay.
What you're wearing is a cultural right of the Yoruba lady.
Okay.
Okay, and that should be accepted. That should be recognized and accepted. Okay. However, there is also a limitation, because there's a saying that says that when you are in Rome, you behave like a Roman.
I don't think you remember that saying in Nigeria.
That's a problem. So it is also wisdom for you to know, okay, I'm going into this place. What are their rules? What are their cultures? So that I don't offend them. You understand? So it's both vice versa. We must respect the person that is coming, and the person coming to must respect where he's going.
There's also another thing, language. I schooled in the north, I said it earlier, so it brought me closer to different cultural groups, the people from Kogi State, the Igbo friends. I had Igbo friends and all that. So I got to understand that it's rude to actually speak your language, your native language, when another person is present that does not understand the language.
I think that's not a cultural issue, that's a moral issue, because if I come to a community...
to address that, because this happens all the time. You see, you're in a place and then you see people talk in the dialect and you just have no idea of what they're talking about.
That's part of the cultural supremacy that we have, the problem of cultural supremacy that I talk about. Okay, for example, people like to, a lot of times this happened to me, somebody will call me on the phone and the next thing he's speaking is dialect. I say, hello, you don't even know. Could you speak the common language that I can understand?
Well,
it's annoying when I don't.
Really, this conversation can continue to go on and on, because there's lots to be said about cultural diversity, cultural rights, cultural acceptance, and so on. So aside from riding, what other things do you enjoy doing?
I'm a manufacturer, and I enjoy doing what I love to do, that's making things. Making things,
like from the scratch?
Yes, very well.
Interesting. Your kind of person is right. You're Larry's kind of person.
Okay.
That's a compliment, though. Please take it. You're welcome, and thank you for coming on the program.
It's a pleasure to be here.
All right.
You're doing great work.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So still celebrating World Cultural Diversity Day for Language and Development. We'll be going on this break, which is Blast from the Past, giving you village people, Larry's very own village people. Please stay with us. It's still Ogtv Splash.